Hi, welcome to the Reaching Your Full Potential Online Tech Summit, where top experts share their secret tips to stand out from the crowd and to use technology to be uber successful. Today, I have my good friend George Wachtel. A little bit bio about George. George founded Rational Computing Consulting in 2006 after a lengthy career in the corporate world, which encompassed all aspects of software development and management. Some of the services that he offers began as project management and software development plus consulting. And in 2017, he started developing a product named Hypjobs, which was put into production in 2019. Hypjobs helps employers and employees by geographic matching of jobs to areas where employees are interested in working. They started Hypjobs in Canada and slowly expanded to the USA and to other English countries. Expansion hopefully happening soon as well. George, thank you for coming on. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, a little bit more, and maybe expand on what you do as well.
Okay, thanks for having me, Shahid. Well, a little bit more about myself is I basically get my hands dirty with every aspect of Hypjobs. And I guess for anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, an online entrepreneur, that's probably a necessity to some degree, although you may or may not have some of the skills that are required. But it's good to at least know that from the top level. What do I do on a daily basis? I mean, I make sure that the product is up and running. I attend to emails that come in from various people who are using the product. I guess when Shahid was mentioning before was what it does, but I think for this particular audience, I mean, that's what it does from
Right.
a user's perspective. But for this particular audience, I'm just going to go into a little bit deeper. It's a marketing tool. It's also a recruiting tool, both for employees and from employers. So it's really three tools in one. And that's important because from a monetizing perspective is there's no point doing anything unless you're going to make some money out of it, is the bottom line, right? Sure. So the marketing, we started off with the platform of hopefully, well, again, although we started in 2019, but we only brought it into 2020 to have our paid version for employees to hire. For employees, it's free. It's even free for employers, but it's on a minimal version. So you've heard of those. I guess we get just a little bit of it for free and some of it not. Anyway, but we've done that. Here comes COVID-19 back in March, and it really sets us back. We had a few employers, but none of them are hiring at this point. So they say, well, we're going to see you in a few months. What are you going to do? You got to keep making money. You got to pay the bills. So we went more into a marketing thing. And funny enough, we've been approached by different companies with marketing. So the point is, you got to keep yourself open to all this. You got to pivot when the chips are down. So to say, although I can't really say we're down, but you absolutely have to pivot, and we did. So we're working with other job boards. We're republishing their ads. We're sending out marketing campaigns, email marketing campaigns. That was another thing we did. We found that the cost of email marketing campaigns are prohibitively high. So we built our own email solution. I mean, not everybody can do that, but again, you have to check, you have to pivot where you need to pivot. So it goes back to that. I don't know if I answered your question properly.
No, that's a lot. Yeah, no, definitely you did answer. But just just for clarity, we are talking about Hypjobs, and that's what you're referring to. So Hypjobs, I know, knowing with the past conversations that we've had, and you started this in 2017. But why don't you tell me a little bit more about like the journey, how you started, and where you are today? And obviously, it has grown. Having speaking to you for a while, but but it's definitely not where it was in 2017. Kind of like where you kind of see that going forward as well.
Well, interestingly enough, so my son is partners with this, and he has a background in GIS and geographic information systems. And he was sure that one of the problems with every other job board is they do not have decent geographical interfaces. So we started building this as a result, and we incorporated a lot of his GIS knowledge into this. But again, this goes back to, well, okay, so we started it, and it took more than a year to develop it, probably around 18 months, to get it to a point where you could actually say, this thing works. One of the reasons for that is we're a small operation. We only have 3 or 4 people at any point in time working on it, sometimes only 2, actually quite often only 2. And we had to do a lot of different pivots to get here. So for instance, we started off with just having GIS coordinates, but we incorporated transit lines. Now that's actually proven to be a problem in the United States because we can't, they don't have the same access to transit lines as we do here in many cities.
Right.
Here in Canada, when we first started, we only did 3 cities, and that presented most of the possibility, which was Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver, including subway lines and all of that other stuff. But interestingly enough, as we kept developing all of this, we found that many of our users didn't care about it. They're coming from places other than the 3 big cities. And they're more worried about having something which is drivable.
Right.
So we went back to there. That was one of the things we had to work with, in the sense that although we thought that the transit lines would be our differentiator, it really wasn't that big of a differentiator. So again, I've said this probably 5 times already now, you have to pivot. You have to make sure what your differentiator is. And also the other thing too is, while you're doing that, is I don't know how many of your viewers here understand the concept of minimal viable products, but that's important. I suggest that you Google it, minimal viable products, and you read it. If you don't understand them, if you do, obviously I'm being redundant. But you'll find that with that, you'll know when you've built something and you can test it, and is it going to work or is it not going to work? And that becomes critical.
Right.
So again, I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
That definitely addresses it. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the journey where you are today is pretty amazing, and especially what you have described too as well. Obviously, George, you are in the tech field. You are a developer. You are obviously quite knowledgeable in the areas that you are in, but and this might shift a little bit in terms of your own experience. How do you adapt and innovate, especially as a developer, a freelancer per se, I guess, both from a perspective of maybe your own company, Rational Computing, and also Hypjobs as well. I know you talked about pivoting, definitely 100%, but what else how do you adapt, especially in today's climate?
Well, number one, things really change quickly. So for example, we're still operating Rational Computing. It's still a viable business. We're not just doing Hypjobs. And because of COVID-19, I mentioned that before, is we're getting a call for very small e-commerce sites. So we've built a CMS, or a custom CMS with Shopify Lite. And we seem to be getting some traction with it, in the sense of a lot of entrepreneurs now are looking at things to sell. Amazon has a very high percentage that they want, as does eBay if you're selling on those platforms. Whereas with the Shopify Lite, it's basically $9 a month. And we don't take any of your percentage. So it's become attractive. So my point of all of this is, you adapt. You see, what are people asking for now? You can't just sit on your laurels and say, hey, I do a good website or I'm a good database developer. You do that and you're going to be a dinosaur.
So true. Definitely, adaptation is very important, especially in today's climate. And obviously, your experience to where you are right now. What are some of the mistakes that you wish you could have avoided, both from a perspective of your own company and also Hypjobs?
Well, the one thing you should avoid is having people sell you on things that they really shouldn't be selling you on. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but it doesn't come obvious when you're a freelance developer and people are telling you, hey, if you do this, we can up, like, for example, I don't know if any of you, the audience remembers Craigslist years ago, would be advertising, build me a website and I'll put you on my um, good boys list or whatever they called it, I can't remember. But the bottom line was they just wanted a free website. And there's a lot of people out there who just want freebies. Avoid those. Get yourself into uh, a space where people will recognize you for what you are, for what you can do, what you bring to the table, and do not give away anything for free, basically. One of the things that I learned this was back in 2008 when I was just starting with rational computing. If you give away something for free, people think that's about what it's worth, nothing. So that's a bit of advice I can offer.
It's good. Value is important. Definitely. So obviously, with Hypjobs, and this might go back to that, is like, how did you guys know when you had that right idea to kind of do it? I know you kind of touched on it with the GIS, but how did you know when you had the right idea to kind of take it forward and be, obviously, add somebody else to the market of looking for jobs, and especially from a website perspective?
Well, okay, as I said, we thought we saw, and again, we pivoted out of this market later, although we might go back in. We thought we saw a niche for the geographical information systems aspect of it. I mean, you can go to our competitors, say Indeed, and you can go in, give them a postal code, and they'll come up with something. But we do much better, and we know we do much better. And so we thought, hey, if we do that, we're going to get users. And that's where we thought we've got the right idea. I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm tooting my own horn with that, but the point is you need to have a differentiator. Once we were able to establish from a business perspective that that is our differentiator, we moved on with it.
Nice.
And again, take it back to this Shopify like CMS. We put the word out there, and we had people. Hey, I'm interested. I mean, I'm going to have a $9 a month website, well, $9 US, but you're paying it to Shopify, but it's a one-time cost, and I can control it myself. That's something that's sellable, and you look at the market and you say, am I going to be able to do this? You test the market and you go with it. And testing the market is by just offering it to different people at different times.
Right, makes sense. Oh, that's good. Good, definitely. Good, valuable information and tips as well in there too. Obviously, with whatever you do as an entrepreneur, there's always going to be adversity and doubt. How did you handle it?
Well, the adversity and doubt, again, goes back to COVID-19. So we were basically flying high in February, March. Business was starting to boom. And here comes COVID-19, everything is shut down. But in our case, it hit us really, really hard because there were no jobs available. I mean, you're a job board, you're trying to attract people to your site, but there's no jobs for them to apply to. So what do you do? Well, one of the things we did was we lowered our costs. Again, this goes back to the mailer that I was mentioning to you about. We reached out to different people with different ideas. We're also starting to incorporate a blog. We have a partnership with uh, an educator who you actually know, who is helping people coming up with career path choices. So
Right.
we haven't put this on our site. We're hoping to by the end of June. But that's another thing that you can do in these times. People, there aren't that many jobs. Well, let me read about how I can change my career path.
Right. That's true. That's good. Definitely, it's good to know for sure. So, obviously you have had success in what you're doing. You have been involved in corporate as well, and both in leadership positions and also as various positions rather. How can one be a good leader?
Um, it's funny you ask that because I was just thinking about this the other day when in my first few years working for a major electrical utility here in Ontario, um, Ontario Hydro, actually at the time, I had a boss who I was not very fond of, and that's putting it mildly. And he would do everything which would infuriate pretty much all of his subordinates. So when I became a leader, I thought to myself, what would he do? And I did the opposite, to be honest
Okay.
with you. But I know that sounds funny, but the point is always think about how people will react to how you lead. And it needs to be a good reaction. You can't think how other people will react, but you can think how you will react.
Right.
So think before you do and make sure in your own mind you would react positively to it.
Right.
So it's just as
Yeah.
I was actually just answering that to somebody who just got a position, a promotion as a manager.
Nice, nice. That's definitely good advice for sure. Um, we're almost coming near the end. So, what is one tip that you can share with us today that if you implement today, that you can have success?
Well, the tip is obviously, and I'm just going to say the obvious here is you need to work hard, you need to roll up your sleeves, but you need, again, I go back to two things I was mentioning, MVP, the minimal viable product, if you're going to be an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. If you think that you have to have everything working perfectly, you're never going to get off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then the minimal viable product brings in this whole idea of pivoting. You try it out, it works, great. If it doesn't, you pivot and you go in a slightly different direction and you try that out again too.
Right.
And I think if you go by that, if you strongly believe in what you're about to do, you should see some success.
Mm. True. That's good. That's a good tip for sure. Um, so is there anything else you want to add to the interview before we finish?
Well, I guess it was going to be a free offer, which
Yes. Yeah. You can mention that.
you
Yeah.
said, and if anybody's interested in one of our Shopify Lite sites, we're giving a $50 coupon towards it. So you can take advantage of it. You can reach out to Shahid to contact me and we can go on from that.
Perfect. We'll keep a link with the video, so with the details there. So that's really great. Thanks for that, George. Well, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come.
Thank you
Great
for having me.
conversation, and wish you all the best of luck with Hypjobs, especially going forward, and your own, and also
Yeah,
Rational Computing as well too.
yeah, and hopefully this pandemic, the lockdowns are totally gone and there are no more problems with unemployment, and which helps not just Hypjobs, but everybody else too.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%. Hopefully, we're back out to the normal again.
All right,
Sounds
great.
good.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Shahid.
George. Again,
All right,
thanks.
thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.